So what's the vortex?
The vortex is this like cold wind and cold air front coming down from Canada, and
Canada.
with all the Great Lakes and all the different lakes that we have in Wisconsin, more than Minnesota's 10,000 lakes. There's a lot of cold air that accumulates and then blows right off of that. So it's just a mega chill.
It sounds terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not fun at all.
Yeah, I don't really feel like I miss winters in the city, like the suburbs even, it's like those winter storms come through and you just like dread it. It's like it's going to be slushy and like
The snow's not even pretty because it's all like, dirty and snow plowed up. And yeah, it gets pretty ugly out there. I'm not going to lie. But if you don't have any part of your body showing at all, you can stay kind of relatively comfortable. But no, it's really bad.
Yeah, I feel like it's a lot different living in Colorado where like everybody's kind of jumping for joy when they see a big weather system coming. And so that's kind of a neat thing. Like people are excited out here for snow. In fact, kind of craving it.
Oh yeah.
Which
Much
is
different.
But yeah, this storm that's rolling through, I was reading something about it. It's like 1,300 miles across the United States. That's pretty much getting hit like all at once. It's like a strip.
Damn.
Did you see that? I was trying to look at. Here's what it looks like. It's like all the way across the country.
Wow.
Same time.
That is brutal. I
Yeah.
mean, I've never seen anything like that across the whole country.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's like, shoot, man. I mean, for us, I hope it hits. I hope we get like socked in with snow. We got like maybe a foot or two of new powder.
Yeah.
In Telluride. That would be amazing. Telluride is much more fun when there's lots of snow in the winter. So, but the interesting thing about this is that this particular news article, it's like pretty much one of the most entertaining news articles I came across today when I was kind of like looking to see what's going on in the world since 2025 started. Not a lot of great stuff, but I think we'll talk about it here. Thanks for joining us. Break the Cypher.
Yeah.
Nice to see you guys. We hope you had a great holiday break. We've been enjoying ourselves, or I've been enjoying myself. Have you been enjoying yourself?
There's been a lot of tourism up in Telluride that's been keeping me busy on the job, on the grind, but it's also been fun, meeting a lot of people, seeing a lot of things, hearing some stories, some horror stories of travel nightmares, luggage lost, flights delayed, all that fun stuff. Yeah. They're like, we got to buy everything. Our luggage is lost.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. When I worked at a shop up there, they have like rental clothing and stuff. Do they still do that? No. They used to have rental clothing just for this reason, because people's luggage would get lost and, their mountain trip got derailed. It sounds kind of absurd, it costs so much money to like get a flight. It's like you can't be losing people's stuff anymore.
No,
right? Like
seriously,
I don't know.
I've never been caught in that situation, but like, can you imagine not having anything you packed? No toiletries, no sweaters, no underwears, nothing.
Not a lot of. But yeah, like I was saying, dude, I was skimming through some of the articles earlier. I was looking at marijuana stuff, looking at world stuff, 2025, like see what's going on out there. And not a lot of things really jumped out at me. This weather, this big storm that we're all experiencing all at once, that's kind of cool. It's like puking on like a huge chunk of the United States. But yeah, so it kind of threw me into like what do we want to talk about? Like what seems interesting? Like after a couple weeks off, I'm like, I don't know. My level of give a fuck is at an all-time low from all the Bloody Marys I had over the holidays. Yeah. You know how that goes. So, but, interestingly enough, I threw on the Joe Rogan podcast. I really like the Joe Rogan podcast. I think it's called the Joe Rogan Experience. Really interesting one on that I caught today. It was about like the UFOs and stuff, and I don't know. There's a lot of like interesting topics, and it kind of got me interested to like, dive into some of that other stuff that's been going on. We've seen some of the drones out here, and so when I was reading articles, of course, it's like about New Jersey, but there's been a couple instances just here at my house. Had a couple friends over, and we're all outside like trying to figure out what these things are in the sky. Several of us have pictures of it, and I'm like, yeah, like what the hell is going on out there, dude? What do you think?
I mean, yeah, there's some activity going on across the nation. I think.
You were here one of the nights, right?
I did. I saw some lights in the sky. It was hard to even pinpoint because you're like, what? Your mind's trying to rationalize. Like, what could this thing in the sky be? Is it a satellite? Is it SpaceX? No, because it's orbiting and it's like moving in a very particular weird pattern that no aircraft or anything uses. So it catches you off guard and it brings a lot of like excitement. But it is curious to me how they changed every time. It seems like there's like a spike in phenomenon. It goes from UFO to then it was UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon, to now it's all like blanket term drone. Like, where did the term drone come from?
I know. And why is it supposed to make us feel more comfortable? Because I don't necessarily feel more comfortable, but I noticed that too. It was almost like there was this announcement that, number one, I think the government made some sort of statement about how, yes, they have actually detected UFOs and some activity in space. I feel like that just happened recently. And then it wasn't even like a day or two later that we were seeing stuff in the sky then, which made me think, I was like, well, maybe they were just trying to like, give us a good precursor. Like, yeah, we kind of know that this stuff exists because you guys are going to see some shit over the next couple of days and we can tell whatever screen we're looking at, right? That's kind of how it made me feel, because it was like, okay, they made this like nice subtle announcement, and then a few days go by, we start seeing weird things in the sky. And when I say that, I mean like, my circle of people and friends, and, they're all really smart, intelligent. They got their wits about them. And they're all like, you got to come outside and see these UFOs, is what we called them at the time last month.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now they're what, UAPs?
They're drones.
They're drones, we think. And so kind of interesting, it's like this whole thing's going on. It makes me think about the people who have been like advocating about UFOs for like 4 decades.
Mm-hmm. Exactly that. No, there's like a lot of different things that are coming to light as far as like decades ago, soft disclosure, people were releasing certain things. And I don't know if you've ever heard of this guy. I mean, there's a lot of controversy surrounding the topic, right? Mm-hmm. What's real, what's fake, what videos are doctored, blah, blah, blah. But there's actually this guy, Stephen Greer, who's kind of infamous in the space. But what I wanted to call attention to was that he created these protocols. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they're called CE5 protocols. And they're different techniques and maneuvers that you can do either individually or in a group setting that can help bring about that phenomenon. It actually is almost like inviting UAP, UFO activity to occur in the areas that you're witnessing. It's really, really interesting because it kind of is a combination of using your like kind of group think and everyone's kind of intentions are aligned to call this into your space, and also like using lasers. And I've never done it personally, but I thought it was really, really interesting.
It is really interesting. I have a couple of like far out ideas about it. I'm not saying that it is like this is the answer, but I always like, I guess not always, but recently, if I'm talking about AI with somebody or the UFO/drone flying apparatuses, whatever we want to call them, right? I'm always like thinking about, AI, and I feel like I've had conversations with you in the past without this more, like more in passing. Maybe they were quicker, maybe they went in depth, but I have this feeling that like, we'll start to experience like stranger and stranger events the more AI progresses, because AI will have mathematical equations for time travel and parallel universes and shit like that, which I know is kind of far out, but am I wrong? Like, if it does come up with a mathematical equation for time travel or teleportation, we're going to start noticing weird shit happening before we know AI can even do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, that's like, I know that's out there, but
it's so unpredictable. It's like a brand new space, and it's progressing so quickly. So if you think of Moore's law, which is the rate of technology and advancement doubles every year, and it's exponentially curving. And so, AI is kind of new on the scene for most people. They know like, oh, there's like chatbots and there's like image generators, but it's already at the point now where it's PhD level smart. It's passing the bar. It's, creating all sorts of cool new algorithms, equations, ideas, because it can quantum compute and try a million bajillion formulas all at once simultaneously, whereas that would take us decades.
It's pretty wild. And I think that, it's just going to kind of continue as we go. And I don't see AI as a negative thing. I know some people do. I just think it's interesting that we have like all this new interstellar stuff going on, and it doesn't seem like anybody can really put their finger on it. I brought up the people from the past though a little while ago, because I feel like, right, like the government comes out, they're like, oh, well, yeah, UFOs, they're kind of a thing. We kind of know about them, right? And at that point, I was like, oh my God, there's been people for like 3-4 decades, right, who have been talking about UFOs. And what have the rest of us done? We've been like, oh man, they are crazy. And we like owe them an apology, I believe. Like, they weren't crazy after all. Just remember that. And I think that goes all the way back to like Roswell, like all that disturbance that took place. And there was people that, even when you watch the documentaries now, I mean, they look like they actually saw something. Oh, yeah. And I think it's definitely, a thing, I just don't know if it's like us traveling back in time post AI developments, or if it's I have no idea. Yeah. I don't know if it's like an alien species or if it's us. Who knows?
Right. From the future. Back to the future. Right.
Sounds like a good movie.
No, it's really interesting. And I think that mainstream media kind of like helped shape that discourse into like, oh, they're all crazy, or it's nonsensical. I remember specifically like there was a Phoenix Lights incident. I forget the date exactly, but like the whole city of Phoenix saw all these aerial phenomenon occurring in mass. And basically there was a couple news stories right after that kind of like admitted that or reported on it, and then immediately it was blanketed over of like, oh no, like that never really happened, these were just weather balloons, and they like hyped up this big news release, and they're like, all right, we're gonna share something with the public. And they brought out this guy in an alien costume as like a big joke, as like, oh, we found out what the phenomenon was occurred by, look. And it's like they just walk out this dude in a big alien jumpsuit, and they kind of like made a big joke of it. And I think that's just funny looking back on it now, to be like, wow, they really went to those lengths to try to like kind of cover all this up.
I'm looking at it right now, bro. And the interesting thing about it is it reminds me a lot about what I saw recently. But let me read this. Phoenix Lights, 1997, one of the largest mass sighting events in history. The object was described as a miles-wide boomerang that hovered silently over Arizona. And this is the original video. Yeah, check this out. Like, doesn't that not look like... I feel like Lane was just showing us his video in Disappointment Valley, and that's what it looked like. And then in the backyard for a couple nights, I feel like I saw stuff that was definitely a lot like that.
right?
That's 1997 in Arizona, original video.
Multiple aerial phenomenon occurring at once, and they're acting in sync, in unison. Very hard to describe or, explain off in layman's terms. Of like, okay, yeah, this was just some testing at the aerial, Air Force site. Nah, really? Well, why were they hovering? Why were they forming in and out? Pretty crazy.
I don't know.
It's awesome. I like how things are ramping up, though. And I think independent media has a lot to do with bringing validity to it. We all have phones that can record. We're all, posting, sharing our experiences. And so it's not isolated. It's multiple people seeing things, posting things, and you can't write it off.
Right? I mean, somebody ought to call Mulder and Scully, my friend. But anyways, yeah, really interesting because, when I see it, I'm like, I wonder if it's aliens. I wonder if we figured out time travel or there's teleportation. Or who knows what it is. The point is that so nobody knows what they are still, and we are continuing to change our names about them. We're calling them drones. Whose drones are they? We don't know.
Oh, they're just flying drones now.
They're just drones, So that's pretty.
I want to say something though. You were bringing up time travel, AI. It's coming up with all these advancements that we can't even comprehend right now. And you were talking about almost something along the lines of timeline shifts.
Or
parallel realities, or different kind of aspects of what we experience. And one of the things I wanted to bring to your attention was if you had ever heard the term or kind of experienced any Mandela effects.
Well, I'm not really familiar with the term. We briefly kind of touched on it a little bit, and it's it's kind of something that's new to me. I feel like it was surprising, right? That I hadn't heard of it, and I guess when I first heard mandala, I thought about a mandala, like a rug or something. But otherwise, no, I don't really understand what you're referring to in the Mandela Effect.
It's actually Nelson Mandela. Yeah, and so a lot of people had this shared experience. Yeah, a lot of people believed that he actually died in a South African prison while he was kind of fighting the political regime that was happening there at the time, I believe in the late 90s. But that term, because so many people experienced that and thought that he had died in prison, they attributed that term to a lot of different phenomenon where things aren't quite as we remember it. And so there's a slew of examples, and I have quite a few favorites, but one of them being, for example, and they're just all very minute details, but it's kind of like a glitch in the matrix of the Monopoly man never had a monocle. I guess according to our reality. And there's a ton of them. The Bernstein Bears was the Bernstein Bears. Kit Kat never had a dash in its logo. The Fruit of the Loom never had a cornucopia. These are things that I vividly remember that apparently have never existed, which is quite fascinating to think how it's kind of, collective consciousness, how we remember things. And a lot of people do remember them a certain way, but apparently that's not how things are or have ever been, but then we all seem to remember it differently.
Yeah, and I feel like I definitely, when we kind of brazed over it a little bit, I felt some differences naturally, and it started with Fruit of the Loom, and when you brought up the effect a little bit, and I was like, wait, we need to put this on hold and go record this conversation. And so Emerson's telling me about Fruit of the Loom and the cornucopia, which what is the thing about that again? Because where I'm at is I don't remember there ever being a cornucopia. I just remember the bundle of fruit.
Well, where I come from, I vividly remember owning Fruit of the Loom, like, just white tees and some undies when I was a young kid. And it had that cornucopia, that basket that held the fruit. And apparently that's never existed, but people have taken pictures and shown examples of articles of clothing that do have that. So which one is it? Has it never existed? Did it exist? For some people, have realities bled into each other? And it's very interesting, just kind of in my background and very being kind of looking into logo design and things of that sort. And that's where a lot of the Mandela Effect comes up, is not social issues or topics. It's very little minute details in logos and names of things that a lot of people seem to remember differently.
Yeah. And when I think about it, I'm looking at the Fruit of the Loom logos right now. But I just remember the bunch of fruit. I don't remember the basket ever. I don't remember looking that intensely. But when I look at these images, I don't remember the basket being there, which fascinates me because you remember the basket being there
Vividly.
And I'm like, damn, right? And then there's Curious George's tail, which I don't remember him ever having a tail. Like when I look at my memory in my brain here, my supercomputer, I don't remember Curious George having a tail. And I looked up the book that I was thinking about on Amazon, and if I just type in like Curious George, it pulls up the yellow book. I remember my grandparents having this book, Curious George book. Okay, so, and what I remember is him not having a tail. And it was funny as we were like kind of going over it, because you and I saw different things in those two items. And so I was curious, the Monopoly guy one, I remember him having a monocle.
There we go.
Right?
Yeah. No, that's exactly that. And like when it comes to Curious George, why wouldn't a monkey like not have a tail? Like, I don't know. It just doesn't seem to make sense to me. And I always kind of remembered it that way. But again, this is like testing like the limits of our our memory. And not only that, our imagination, because we're like very impressionable beings, right? Like we can be manipulated with details. And like, that's why with police investigations, people remember details differently if they've already heard someone else explain it, right?
Totally. And that's actually been a problem with like a couple cases. Like there was that one, there's that one big docuseries on Netflix about that guy, Steve Avery, whatever, who was kind of a very interesting, strange guy. I will say that, but that whole case is like super weird where it was like, they got them to believe their story, and got confessions. But then the evidence and stuff doesn't really line up, or maybe it does, but I don't know what you think or what everyone out there thinks, because that's kind of like an open-ended thing. But, that is kind of weird. Like we can be convinced of things, but yeah. I'm still stuck on Curious George here. I'm still looking for a tail. He doesn't have a tail ever, but I don't ever remember him having one, but you remember having a tail.
And the thing is it's not like one or two one-off examples. There's well over 50. And some will spark very, vivid memories for people of like, there's no way that Kit Kat never had a dash in its logo. I used to get Kit Kats all the time as a kid. Like there's a ton of different examples, and it's quite interesting to me because it's timeline shifts, right? It's something just kind of got skewed, and it's not quite how we remember it, but oh no, it's never been that way. But why do so many people remember it that way?
Well, can I ask you one?
Yeah.
Do you think Shaggy from Scooby-Doo ever had an Adam's apple?
I think he had an Adam's apple.
I think he had a huge Adam's apple.
Right.
That's all I can see.
What is the consensus?
It's, so here's what I'm reading is that, do you remember Shaggy from Scooby-Doo with a big Adam's apple? Maybe as he inhales a giant sandwich. So do tons of others, but in reality, it's nowhere to be seen. That's messed up. at least we're on the same page now, right? That makes me feel like, when you're like, yeah, Curious George has a tail. I'm like, I don't remember him having a tail. And then there's the Fruit of the Loom one. I'm like, oh my God, are we in separate realities right now? Like that's some next level. That's some next level shit. Like you remember a world. I'm like, but now we're starting to find some similarities. The Monopoly guy, he's the wild card. I can't remember. But I'm just like scrolling through as we're going here because, it's really interesting to me that like our perceptions, I guess can be, manipulated is a weird way to put it. It has like a very negative connotation to it, but it's like, it's almost like Plato's cave. Like the shadows on the wall, we are shown the shadows and we are told what they are and create names for them and things. And, that's how all the ideas, came to be and how society wanted us to see certain things. And in the end, it's like how our minds were developed. And it's not until a person gets outside of the cave, right? And the thing about that part of the story is like the person who's leaving the cave is seeing the world for the first time as it is. And it's so bright that it's just blinding to them. And they're just seeing everything for the first time in real light and real this. And it's none of the images or the definitions that have been put in front of them over the course of time that they'd been in the cave. And they just have this mind-blowing experience, and they can't believe it. The first thing they want to do is go back into the cave and tell everybody about it, and they do. But guess what? He's a loon. He's lost his mind. There's no way to like tell. So that's where it's kind of like all these things are, they're kind of interesting. And we're like. I wonder if there's any like hard evidence proving or disproving any of them at this point.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like especially with the Fruit of the Loom one, they went out of their way to like release all the logos they've ever had and logo changes. And so, their factual proof is no, we've never had that logo, but yet people have taken pictures of old articles of clothing that do have that cornucopia in the logo. And same goes for the Bernstein Bears. Everyone that I talk to remembers it as Bernstein Bears, but it's apparently the Bernstein Bears. But again, there's pictures of people taking photos of old VHSs, and the spelling is different.
Mm-hmm. I guess for that one, I would have spelled Bernstein, Bernstein, Bernstein Bears. Okay. That's how I would off the top of my head. Now, what I'm reading now is the Lovable Cartoon Bear family. The Lovable Cartoon Bear family actually spelled their last name with an A. The Berenstain Bears. And the Berens is spelled Bernstein. Berenstain. And so I got it wrong because I thought it was Bernstein this whole time, just Bern, Steen after that, not the case. And so I feel like somebody actually did bring that one up to me, which is like, I don't know, super fascinating. And so what does that mean? It's just like how our eyes interpret things. And, I don't know. It's like, it doesn't seem like worth pulling a fast one over our eyes, like confusing us about how these bears spell their last names and stuff.
Yeah, right.
Like, why do it?
Yeah, what's the motive or whatever? I think it's more so of just like, is reality in our history like editable? Is it manipulative? Is it something that can be manipulated and just edited and tweaked with in a certain way where things aren't quite as we remember it? And it's just kind of a fascinating rabbit hole to go down.
Damn, look at this one. Oscar Mayer. I would have definitely spelled it Meyer. Yeah. It is not spelled. It's spelled with an A. Mayer.
You get why I'm fascinated, because it's a lot of logo stuff too.
I mean, it's definitely kind of fascinating me and blowing my mind at the same time. Yeah. And so, damn. I mean, how cool is that? And so, I don't know, like how does that work? I mean, so they're like, there's almost like parallel realities, and that gets us back to like our far out conversation on on AI, and like AI, like I don't know what AI thinks about this. Maybe we should ask it. Like, what would AI say about Curious George's tale to resolve the dispute going on between us?
But the interesting thing about that is AI can only, or at its current point, can like scrape internet data and like has a very large knowledge base, but it's all like from the internet, and so this phenomenon strictly exists in humans' heads, right? Like we remember it, and like vividly sometimes as we remember it a certain way. And so I don't even think AI can really like weigh in on the discussion, because it's something that we've as humans experienced pre-AI, and we have opinions and solid beliefs on, which makes us human, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, shit. I mean, it's pretty deep. It's pretty deep. The Mandela Effect.
Yeah.
I'm glad we talked about this, just because I thought it was Mandala that you said before.
Yeah.
I'd have been like, hey, you guys have heard about the Mandela Effect? And then I would be creating...
it'd be a whole new thing.
Yeah. There'd be a group of people I talked to that I was like, it's Mandala Effect, and who knows how far that would go.
Is it the razor-throated fish?
Oh, yeah.
Uh-oh.
This happened.
Uh-oh.
I worked at one of the fly fishing shops here in Telluride, and one of the guys played a trick on me. And I, to this day, don't think it was funny. I think that he changed the course of many fisher people out there that we no longer have contact with, and we can explain what happened. But I was new at the fishing shop, and I asked him, I said, why did they call it a cutthroat trout? There's a cutthroat trout out here, is what it's called. And he's like, oh, and this guy was like my mentor in a lot of ways, right? So shame on him. He is like, oh, you didn't know? He's like, so in their gills, they're like razor blades, And so like, you gotta be really careful or we'll cut your finger. Okay. That's about the extent of the whole conversation. The funny part of the story is months went on before anybody corrected me, and I was working at a fly fishing shop. So literally, this is one of the coolest stories I could be telling people while they're looking for flies, while they're looking at rods or reels. I'm like, hey,
did you know?
Have you heard? Over and over again. Have you heard? Blah, blah, blah. Cutthroat trouts. And I think about those people a lot. I mean, I've sent them out into the world with their new fly gear and their new rod and their tools to protect their hands from the cutthroat trout. Right? And now I don't even know how to get in touch with them. So hopefully they're listening, and they can resolve this with me right now. There's no razor blades in the cutthroat trout neck. I wish I could have gone back in time and told you. I don't know how many fly fishermen you have told, or fly fisher women, but ain't that some shit?
That's reverberated out.
Sorry. And so it's like, here we are creating our own Mandela effects. Like,
yeah,
whoops.
That easy.
Did you ever remember that the cutthroat trout used to have razor blades? And it evolved out.
I've heard that before.
Right?
It must be true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty funny. But it's fun. That's like, I guess it's like a lighthearted version of the story. It's like interesting to think about if that conversation continued to travel into the history of those people and their lives. And I didn't mean to do it on purpose. So that's kind of cool.
A giant game of telephone, right? You hear something from somewhere and you re-explain it, and the details are shifted and someone else does, and so on and so forth. And before you know it, Susie's picking up a phone call from a banana telephone with 3 shoes on her left foot. And how did we get here?
Oh my God. Dude, the other thing is like, I guess it's a little bit of a change of topic that I've been kind of thinking about recently, and we don't have to go into it, but I was like thinking about the self-driving car thing, and I started to like look up on Google, just like, how many cars are on the road at any one given point in time, and the answer was millions tens of millions of cars are on the road at any one point in time. So like right now, this very second, there's 10 million or more cars on the road. And I was like, man, that's like so many variables. There's so many different variables with cars. There's balls coming into the street. There's animals, there's kids, there's lights, there's stop signs. And I started to wonder, I'm like, I wonder why they started trying to quantify this with automobiles. Like there's so many variables compared to, I guess flying craft is a good way to put it, right? So, it's like you look at a drone show, right? Like at the 4th of July, maybe you got a drone show. There's like hundreds and hundreds of drones cycling around each other. So cool, right? And they're making formations and dancing into new formation and creating animations and stuff. And those are being operated by a computer. And so it seems like that's already going on. So I was like, man, I wonder if, Elon, all these car companies are really just gearing up, to offer us like a real life Jetsons type scenario where it's like, it's a lot safe. It's like, there's all these elements with cars. It will be a lot safer if we just turn these into crafts, right? And then there could be like Uber helicopters that come pick you up, Uber giant drones. You just got to get to the drop center. It'll take you anywhere you want to go. If you want to just go up and down, because I feel like that's what I would do a lot. I'd be like, all right, let's call an Uber, but I just want to go like 1,000 feet up and then 1,000 feet back down. And then I can walk to Burger King, But it's like, I feel like they're queuing us up, right? We got these super light cars. They've been tested against all these variables when it comes to driving, millions and tens of people using it once. And now it seems easy to just be like, boom, let's just turn this all into the Jetsons here,
Oh, yeah. I mean, that seems like the best possible application. You're right. There's so many different variables when it comes to self-driving cars. But in the skies, there's nothing but miles and miles of just air and clouds and breezeway for you to fly wherever you desire. So, no, that's a really cool application. I don't think a lot of people are even thinking like that. But they definitely tackled the hardest problem first, right? Like self-driving cars, so many different things. Not only are other drivers like probably the biggest risk, but unexpected wildlife jumping out in the road, deer, moose, elk, bunnies, squirrels, what have you. You got to react to that. But the thing is I think that they're getting so advanced now that it soon, if not already is, will be safer than actually humans driving, because we get distracted, we daydream. Like, I don't know how many times I've just been driving on the highways out in Wisconsin, and like I'll come back to and I'll be like, holy shit, I feel like I just drove 20 minutes and I was just like, thinking unconsciously, and I was driving safe and fine, but like, did that just happen?
Right. I mean, I feel like it's one of those things too where it's like, it's almost terrifying, right, to think about having like a computer or a robot dictating things that you're usually in control of, like a 400 person like commercial flight or something. Yeah. That seems crazy, right? Like, you get on a flight with 400 people and there's going to be a computer controlling that, and it seems terrifying. But it's like, I'm pretty sure at 1,000 times safer. I mean, based on how many cars are on the roads all at once, tens of millions. And it also says it would be impossible to actually assess. I think when I looked up planes, only 7,000 in the sky at one point in time. Like let's say in 5 seconds from right now, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, there's 7,000 planes in the sky right now. All right, so very low variable, right? They only have to control 7,000 things, right? And so it's like, why aren't we testing that first?
But in the cockpit, there's like 100, 200, 300 buttons. Mm-hmm. Like, it's crazy. I remember as a kid, like, poking my head in the cockpit and like the pilot's giving me that smirk, like, yeah, I know what these things do.
I know. But couldn't they all be explained in a computer program?
Oh,
like, isn't that I mean, like, maybe there's somebody on the flight that's an expert, probably an IT guy. Like, he's not operating the plane, he's operating the software.
Like a co-pilot.
Yeah. Like somebody who's on the craft that can operate the computer software. And then there's people on the ground that are able to operate the computer software. I'm not saying that's the way it should go. I'm just saying like it makes more sense to me to be testing out aircraft with the technology than it does to like, all these cars. You put this on the ground, you got all these variables, you got parallel parking, you got stop signs versus red lights, you got tons of things times millions and billions to millions and tens and millions of cars. And it's like, what an interesting place to try and prove the point.
I agree, yeah. And I do think once they get to like altitude, they pop on like cruise control and they just let that thing kind of like soar for a while. And that's, the computer taking over for just the consistent coasting part of things. But there's a lot of variables too, now that I think about it, with planes when it comes to turbulence and weather conditions. Like, I'm surprised sometimes when these planes take off and it's raining heavy and I'm like, I don't know if we should actually take off. I don't know. I've been in a couple uncomfortable situations in planes, and it gets me worried, and I'm glad that there's like a human pilot that knows what he's doing.
Right? But isn't that just your perception? Right? Like it is, don't get me wrong, it's terrifying to me to think about, I'm going to get on this flight and there's a robot driving it instead of a human being. And that's why I think they're like all the statistics that they're creating with the cars right now, it's like the likelihood of an incident happening is going to be based on, the millions of variables that they tested out with cars. So it seems like a smart idea to try it here, but it also seems like there's a lot more people at risk. Like, oh, just look, no hands. Like, you seen the commercials? I'm like, what are you doing, motherfucker? Like, put your hand on the wheel. And he's like, no hands. Like, your wheel's moving. It's like, oh my God. Like, we're just like going to find out if it works that way. Which is why I think like it probably won't ever, maybe it will be commercial flights, but they'll probably be like small independent crafts. I think one of those Tesla, what is it called? The truck, Cyber truck.
Are you talking about the semi truck?
No, it's the Cyber truck. It's the one I think you were telling me it's going to cost like $40,000 or something.
Oh no, this is the Robo Taxi.
That's the Robo Taxi.
The new one that's coming. Yeah, the Cyber truck is out.
Mm-hmm. And so the Robo Taxi is the one you were telling me about.
Yeah, no steering wheel.
That's crazy.
No steering wheel, no pedals. So once you get to that point, then it's like you can't even intervene, which is pretty crazy to me. Like, I do think that there should be a fail-safe, that you should be able to manually drive a car. It gets a little almost dystopian because once you're in a car and it locks the doors and it starts driving and you have no way to intervene, then what?
I know. I'm thinking like there's just going to be like an eject button and you wear a parachute or something where it like poof, shoots you up into the sky, it like explodes, but yeah, because it's like you are completely out of control. And it's so weird to think about. It freaks me out to think about getting in one of the taxis. It's like you get in one of those taxis and you're up against all the variables. The computer is literally interpreting so much. But if you turn one of those taxis into some sort of craft, like aircraft that can like the Jetsons, think Jetsons. So it's like for you and your crew, like you're like, yo, you guys want to like roll the dice and take one of these flying Ubers? Like, let's do this thing. Like, I don't care. Like, live for the moment. What? It's just like your buddies and they're like, boom, cool. 5 minutes later, you're at like a Taco Bell on the other side of the state. And you're like, this is amazing. I love Taco Bell from this area, And so, right. But it's like, that seems like less daunting to me. And it seems like they're already creating like super cheap cars, super smart computer, very light. You don't have anything on the inside that you have to do. And so all you got to do is put propellers on it at this point, and it becomes safer, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here for it. I want flying cars, man.
I want flying cars. I'm not saying I would get on a commercial flight with 400 people. That terrifies me, but I would be like, yeah, let's take a flying Uber, whatever. I got my parachute.
Oh, yeah.
I'll bring my own parachute.
Finger over the eject button just for funsies.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, we better talk about some marijuana here. Oh, it's so good. It's been so nice being on break and just being able to let loose and chill out, take a puff, see friends, talk about things. I found this really cool article that I feel like really fits in today. It is Scientists explore how marijuana affects the enjoyment of music through a new study. Well, would you look at that? Now they're starting to study what we've all been saying for years. Everybody at the concerts, they're like, all right, finally, we've been saying it makes music better, Take a little puff of the weed, a little reefer. That was the first time I actually smelled weed.
Oh, really? At a concert?
At a concert. It was the first time I went to a concert without my parents. I was with other parents. And we were going to, I was in 7th or 8th grade. We were going to see Page and Plant at the United Center. Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, Led Zeppelin, right? At the United Center. I was in 7th grade, so I'm still like, who's Led Zeppelin? And they're like, you'll totally get it once we get there. And so we go to the show, we get to our seats. It was amazing. It was like at United Center, so it was huge. And yeah, the people like a row behind us were like smoking joints. And I was like, I don't know, it was that time you first smell that sweet, sweet Chiba. When was the first time you smelled it?
Oh man, I was just thinking back to my first concert experience, but I didn't smell any reefer there. But my first concert experience was with my buddy Cole and Tristan, and we went and saw Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. Yep. Yeah, it was awesome. It was rocking, man. It was a great time.
Yeah, what kind of music are you into these days?
I like kind of a wide range of music, man. I've been into some more like indie rock type stuff. So like the last few live concerts I've seen were this group called the Marias that are very funky, very like almost like French and like sophisticated with their style and their aesthetic. And then this other group called Somersault, which is very like beachy, Hawaiian vibey music. And they put on a really good show. Yeah, I've been liking all sorts of music, man. But it's definitely cool, like just exploring the different genres and not sticking in one lane.
Yeah, I checked out the Marias. They're super cool. You showed me actually. I got into a couple live streams over the holiday break, especially for New Year's. We did Pretty Lights New Year's show, which was epic. I actually did the day before and the day of. And then I also did the fish stream, which was incredible. It was nuts. And you know what? The weed made it sound even better. I swear to God, you like try a little bit and you're like, I can really feel these guys. No, I'm just kidding. It's I feel like marijuana and music have been going together for so long. Like so much of the music, like music history and stuff. You look at like, Woodstock, the Beatles, Grateful Dead. You really start to see cannabis come into like the mainstream of music. Tom Petty, when I was growing up, I always thought Tom Petty was cool because he like smoked weed. There's like this little thing about him. But you always see like weed and music or weed and art, creativity kind of going together. And I do think that is because it changes your senses, whether you're making music or you're listening to it. I think, the senses are kind of changing a little bit. I don't think that they're like so different that it is a complete different experience. But you kind of like listen to the groove a little longer. Maybe you care less about who's watching you dance, right? You're just allowing yourself to like flow into it, get some like heavy noodling going on, we're like, whoa, wow. And I know it looks crazy, but it feels so good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah,
get down with the get down.
Get down with the get down. And so I thought that was a pretty interesting article. There's not like a ton of information I want to like read about. But I feel like it's a good thing that there's a study about this now because I feel like we have so much quantified evidence through firsthand experience and people who could give personal testimony about this, and maybe you could help out this study. So look it up, see if they're looking for people who have an opinion about this. Like I feel like plenty of us do, and so yeah. Not too much else going on. I saw that the sports leagues and stuff are lightening up on like NFL players and marijuana use and THC content in their blood, which is good because I feel like, I don't know, I don't think it's something that should be kept from athletes. I feel like if it helps you collect yourself, helps you de-stress, whether you're professional or not, like high level athletes, like, they deal with shit, they if you're well known and stuff, they got to deal with the fact that everybody knows them everywhere they go. And it's like, I would rather them sit at home smoking weed if they wanted to, rather than like drink all night. That seems like it would be more harmful to their bodies and to their relationships if they were to drink in its place all the time. So I always thought that it was like a positive thing, to let athletes use, especially if they're using it for like a medical condition. Say they have a concussion and they feel like CBD helps or light amounts of THC helps. It's like, hell, let them have it. We let them go on a football field and collide into each other at full speeds, but we won't let them like smoke weed. Like, oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Like some of the hits that these guys are taking, I'm like, they should be able to also hit the bong.
Give this man a joint after the game. Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
One of my favorite athletes, actually, Ricky Williams, had his like whole career tarnished. Great NFL running back. I believe he played for the Saints and also the Miami Dolphins. And I looked up to this dude. It was like prime time. I was in middle school collecting like sports cards, and I had this Ricky Williams card, and I just loved everything about him, his style, his swagger, the way he played. And yeah, he just gets like completely villainized and basically thrown out. His whole career is tarnished because he liked to enjoy some marijuana. Like, what? It's ridiculous. But he was a badass, man. I'll tell you what, Ricky Williams, he had the spin move that would just have people breaking ankles.
Yeah, those are fun players to watch.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, who are we to be like this fine-tuned athlete who definitely cares about his body and mind and has his entire life, so much so that he's beaten the odds physically and mentally than like 99% of people who ever wanted to be a professional athlete. But then it's like, he's got a marijuana problem. What?
Come on.
What? It sounds like those people really just need to like smoke a little bit of weed. All right, just a little bit. I'm not saying take a, blast off. I'm saying smoke a little bit of weed before you start, changing people's lives and stuff over it. Because it's really, I feel like most of us feel like it's less of a big deal than you may think, or than other things that are offered to athletes like creatine or whatever fits into the legal parameters of performance enhancers for athletes. Like there's probably some like serious chemicals in that allowed list. And so I'm happy to see that, maybe they're lightening up on cannabis for athletes. I think there could be many benefits from physical injuries to stress. Like I think these guys deal with a lot of stress. And so, yeah, in other cannabis news, I heard that there are 3 of the largest cannabis genetics companies merging, which is actually pretty big news. These are old genetics banks from, I believe like the Netherlands, honestly. But they're merging to create a genetics bank. Check that out on MJ Biz Daily. Has to be associated with Barney's farm. And so I was like, oh, no shit. I definitely know those guys. I've seen them at like Cannabis Cups and stuff. Like you got like Cincy Seeds, Barney Seeds. You got Soma. Those are like some of the old school breeders that were out there. Like Soma was carrying the original like DJ Short Blueberry. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but I tried growing it before. It's a really finicky strain and produces like kind of small little like chunks of bud, but definitely worth it.
Well, that's interesting to hear that the three largest are actually merging. I wonder what that will do as far as like pricing or industry kind of, because it's for their geneticists.
Yeah, they just do seed breeding, and they've been doing it for years out of, the Netherlands. And so it will be interesting. I mean, they're some of the top breeders in the world. So,
Wow.
yeah. So props to them. I'm glad to see them, becoming a part of the industry in some way. They're definitely planning on a global move. So that's pretty cool. But that was pretty much it for cannabis news. And the rest of the news, I'll tell you what, like, because we were really looking, and 2025 is not off to the start I would have hoped. And obviously there's been some tragedies, and our thoughts and positive energy go out to those people. But yeah, it was kind of a little depressing getting into the news this morning, and so I'm glad we got to go off on a little bit of a higher level of thinking type conversation. And I don't think we're that far off. I think that like some of the things we talked about, like keep your eye on it. Like the weirder stuff starts getting around you, you need to start questioning what AI figured out. What kind of mathematical, like somebody just teleported into your living room? It might actually be happening.
Hey man, buckle up. 2025 is going to be a year.
It's going to be a year. Well, we'll leave it at that unless you got anything else, my friend.
Hey, no, I'm just sending out good vibrations. Lots of love to all our supporters. Like I said, 2025, lots going to be happening. We're going to be covering it. Stick around, hang out, chill with us.
Yeah, chill with us a little bit. We like hanging out with you guys, and you can check us out like we always tell you on Apple, Spotify, Amazon. You can go to YouTube. You can scope out our socials. We're on X, Facebook, Instagram. Just look for Break the Cypher. And then we started a little bit of a new thing. I don't think we necessarily knew what we were doing at the time, but we now have a Break the Cypher Facebook group called Correctly Cannabis, and we're like, all right, well, we'll see what happens here. We don't know what we're gonna do, but now we're kind of trying to set it up as a little platform for us to share some articles with you, some cool things, some interesting things, and then for you guys to be able to share some interesting and cool things with us, maybe stuff that you think we should be talking about. We've kind of set up this group so we can start looking at those conversations and having those talks. And part of the reason was because we were, we were looking for cannabis groups all over Facebook and Instagram and X a little bit, but mainly Facebook and Instagram. And we got into a couple groups, and we tried this and we tried that, and I kept looking and looking. And all these groups, they just provided so much nonsense. No offense, but I kind of wanted to get into a group that wasn't about, pictures of Disney characters smoking weed. Like, I'm beyond that. So anyways, you guys keep doing what you're doing out there, and that is fine with us. No harm, no foul. But we're going to start something that is a little bit more correctly cannabis, if you know what I'm saying. And so you can check that out. Look it up on Facebook. We're still trying to figure out how to manage it and respond to people. And so now's your opportunity to get on the ground floor. And then, maybe we're pulling something that you suggested and talking about it on air, because we know you guys probably have so many great ideas for us. So with that, I'll say goodbye. Thank you for listening to Break the Cypher, and we out.
We out.